Hey guys, welcome to another day at ATQ. Today we're going to be doing a DIY video on the ATQ Subframe Collars on this 2023 3.3 liter Kia Stinger. So the first thing I'm going to show you guys is what you get with this kit. You're going to get 10 subframe collars machined and developed by ATQ. You're going to get 4 new bolts to replace the bolts on the car that have an incorrect shoulder to mount this kit. So this way, everything gets installed correctly and works the way that it should. So now I'm going to show you guys what tools you're going to need to use to do this installation. So here we have the impact gun that we're going to use to remove all the bolts. We have a medium half-inch extension, a short half-inch extension, which will show you how they're going to be used when we're doing it. We've got a DeWalt impact driver that I use to remove the splash shield, and that's why we got the 10 mil. This just makes it quicker. You can also do it with a 1/4 inch ratchet, and it'll work the same, just takes longer. We've got a 14 millimeter socket to remove a cover in the back. We've got a 17 mil socket that we're going to use to remove a bracket in the back so we have access and room. We've got the 19 mil socket that we're going to use to remove the bolts. We've got a 1/2 inch ratchet, again, to remove the bolts and for installation. And then we've got our torque wrench to make sure everything's torqued correctly. So you don't necessarily need the torque wrench, but it is recommended because they have to be torque to spec and it needs to be nice and tight. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take off the back half of this shield here, or arrow plate, whatever you want to call it. We're going to do the same on both sides, and then we're going to move to the front. Have my cameraman follow me here. And in the front, we're going to loosen off this part of the shield here. We're going to take this part down completely, and then we're loosen these front bolts so that we have access to get to the bolts. All right, so I've loosened off most of the bolts and removed them already. I haven't done the side ones yet. And then I forgot, there's a tab here that also has to come off on this plate underneath the engine. Let me find the slot. So this comes off, and then boom, plate's down. And now we're gonna move on to loosening these. Then we're gonna do the ones at the back, and then we'll move on to starting the collar installation. So now we're going to start doing the collars, and I'm going to show you guys what we do with this bracket back here that I was talking about earlier. This is where we use the 17 mil socket, and we're going to take this bracket and we're going to move it out of the way so that we have access to this hole for the collar. So what we do is we can take this bolt out, and then this one, well, a little too hard, but whatever, it came off, doesn't matter. Normally I just take it and we'll just swing it out of the way to make room. So if you did get this off like I did, no big deal. We'll just put it back on when we're done. So now we're going to work on the rear front collars. So here you're going to have a 14 mil nut and bolt, and that's what you're using the 14 mil socket for. And then this is where the collar is going to go, and this is going to be a 19 mil. So now I'm going to take these and remove them. There goes the bolt. And here come these two. So this bracket has to come down because the collar is going to be seated above the bracket, not underneath it. So there you go, it's out. And then if you look up here, that's where the collar is going to seat, and it's going to sit on top of this bracket. So the way this is going to work is the bolt's going to come through here, and the collar is going to seat on top of it, and then we're going to reinstall it. All right guys, so we're ready to do this installation now. So we're going to take the bolt, we're going to put it through. We're going to slide the collar down on the bolt, get it all in place. And then we're going to take this, we're going to use the 1/2 inch ratchet, and we're going to do this part by hand, because if you don't do it by hand, you take the risk of cross-threading the threads on this bolt, and then you're going to have a big headache on your hands that you don't want. Also, these bolts, they're not always going to be super smooth. It might have more coating on it, or they might have rust on it. And in that case, have the collar slide on nice and smooth, you're going to either wire wheel or just gently sandpaper the bottom so that it slides down fully. So now I'm going to take my ratchet and I'm going to push up with the palm of my hand and to very carefully start tightening this bolt back in. And then once I have it where it's going a little bit and you can feel it nice and smooth, we're going to grab the 14 mil nut and the 14 mil bolt, and we're going to put them back on to keep this bracket in position. It'll make your life a lot easier and just ensures that you don't lose anything. There's the bolt going back in and the nut. And even with these, do not use an impact gun under any circumstances to tighten them. You're going to be tightening these by hand until they're tight by hand, or you can follow a torque spec if you really want to, but it's not really needed, not for this. So now those are up there. And even on these, never use an impact gun because you take the risk of cross threading, and if you do that, you're gonna have a rough night. So as you see, I'm pushing up with the palm of my hand as I'm ratcheting. Gonna get it nice and snug by hand. And afterwards, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna take the torque wrench and I'm gonna torque this to 125 foot-pounds. I know some people think that they need to be at 90. However, the old torque spec for this is 125, and then later on they changed it to 90, and I don't know why, but we're gonna go with the old torque specs. So now I got that on there. I'm gonna take my 14 mil, and then I'm gonna tighten these up. Love the sound of hitting the gas tank. So one of these is just gonna snug it at first. Then afterwards, I'm gonna grab the other short 1/2 inch extension, and I'm gonna just tighten these up by hand until they're nice and tight. All right, so now I got my other short one, just nice and tight by hand. Doesn't need to be anything overly tight. So this is just a bracket. Then what we're gonna do after, once this is torqued to spec, is we're gonna put this 17 mil bolt back in, and then that side is done. So you're gonna do the same for the left and right hand side of the car, but this is how it's done for this one. Now we're gonna do the rear collars. So I've seen a lot of people struggle with this one, so I'm gonna show you guys how easy it is, and then you'll kind of understand why we kind of tease people about it. So I'm gonna take my 19 mil, I'm gonna take it off. And then what we're gonna do here, I'm gonna take my ratchet, I'm gonna take the collar, and I put the collar in the hole, and get it to slide in there. This one's being a little more difficult, but it'll go in. So you wanna get it in, so there's a few threads. Then you're gonna put your nut on, take your ratchet, and just very carefully tighten it up until it's fully seated and the subframe's back onto the body of the car. And then we're gonna take our torque wrench and we're gonna torque it, and that's all there is to it. So. So you can see it's getting tighter and tighter as it goes up, so it's all straightening out. There we go, she's in nice and tight. So next step is I'm going to torque it, and then this one will be done. So with these ones, do not take these plates off, because if you do, it's a pain to get them back on and you won't be able to install the collars. The collar installs the exact way that I showed you on every single Kia Stinger and G70. We finished everything in the back, all the collars are in, everything is torqued to spec, and now we're gonna put these covers back on. So I've already done the passenger side, now we're gonna put the driver's side back up. So just get everything lined up, make sure it's all in position, and then take your nuts and your bolts and put them in. When you're tightening these, just get them snug. Do not over tighten them or they will break. And if you go too tight and you drive in like a climate with salt and stuff like that, on removal, they'll snap. So just nice and snug, that's it. So now we're gonna work on the front of the vehicle. So I'm gonna show you guys where all the bolts are and where the collar is gonna go. So there's one right here. Then as you follow it down, there's another one right here. And then a little bit forward, it's gonna be above this cover. You get in there and it's right there. There's the other bolt. So those are the three. It's the same on both passenger and driver side. I've already got the passenger side together. So I'm gonna show you guys how these work on the driver side. And then the back two towards the rear of the car, those two are where the new bolts go to replace the other ones. And then when I get these out, I'm going to show you why we're replacing those bolts. So here we go. So this is why I loosened this cover off here too, so we have room to get the tools in here. So I'm gonna take the impact gun, I'm gonna remove this bolt. All right, so now that bolt's out, we're gonna pan down to the ground here. I'm gonna show you guys why we replace those bolts. So this bolt has a thinner shoulder, so the collar will wiggle back and forth, and we don't want this. Otherwise the product won't work correctly. And then with the new bolt, the collar slides right on, there's no play at all. So when you install these, you're gonna take the collar, you're gonna slide it down to the bottom of the bolt so it's seated, and then we're gonna take this and we're gonna ratchet it in by hand, same as the back, and then we'll torque it after. But this ensures that you're not gonna cross thread. So don't ever put the collars in first into the hole, because if it's not centered properly, you're gonna strip these threads, and you don't wanna do that. So we're gonna do like this, go up here, just nice and easy, get it going by hand. And this will force the subframe to line up with the bolt, so everything's nice and square. See how it's like catching the edge? So now, if you had the collar in the hole already and did the bolt, now instead of the collar pushing everything in place, you'd be cross threading, and again, big no-no. So I'm gonna show you guys how to do this one. You're gonna do the same thing on all 6 of the front. So there's no need to make a super long video for this, since nothing's gonna be different. You can see it's nice and tight, just the way you want it. So now that it's in there, I'm gonna torque that to spec. I'm gonna put this cover back up. We're gonna do a 2 in the front, and this will be completed. And then we're gonna put the splash shield back up, and these collars are now installed. So the next and last step is, well, prior to taking the car off the lift, is we've got this cover back up, got all the nuts on there. I'm gonna use the impact driver, just tighten everything up. See, I'm not going too tight, just snug. If you go too tight, like I explained in the previous video, you're gonna have problems. I hate to do this by hand. This is so much quicker. Got this one back here. And that's it. She's all together. And now we're gonna bring the car off the lift, and it's time for the test drive. There you have it. The DIY video is done. The Stinger's pulling out.